Ladies and gentlemen, hello once again and welcome back to the briefing room. My name is Eric Kavanaugh. I will be your moderator for today's event in which we're going to tackle one of the most pervasive subjects in the world of information management and business intelligence in this growing field of analytics. The exact title is To Each Their Own, Solving Analytic Complexity. So here's a slide about yours truly and enough about me. As many of you now know, the mission of the briefing room is to reveal the essential characteristics of enterprise software. So what we do is we pair an analyst with a vendor doing some interesting things, and they do not coordinate before the show. That is a critical component of our process here because we want to preserve and capture for your benefit in the audience the natural discussion that occurs between an analyst and a vendor when the vendor is giving a briefing. So they do not coordinate. What we do is we get the slides from the vendor a week in advance, let the analyst review those slides, they prepare a brief response, and then just start asking questions. So the topic for today is data models. Really, that's what we're talking about. It's analytics is the topic of the month, and we cover a different topic every month, primarily to give you all out there some apples-to-apples comparisons of what's happening in the space, because let's face it, when you're in the position to purchase technologies like this, you want to make sure you know as much about these solutions as you possibly can, because if you buy the wrong thing, it's going to be trouble, and you don't want that. So the topic for today, as I said, is data models and how they help with analytics. One of the hottest issues discussed today is this concept of agility, and that means all kinds of different things. It's a heavily used and widely used term, of course not quite as broadly used perhaps as big data, which is the hottest topic out there these days for a variety of reasons. But agility is a big topic because, let's face it, you want to get value from these solutions. So we're going to talk about how data models can help you get to the information you need in a format that is useful very quickly. Because obviously there's a ton of information out there, there's a ton of data, there are all kinds of systems. We're going to talk a lot about Oracle today, but I think the obvious message here is that data models give you a remarkable amount of agility and flexibility and speed to insight. And I think that's one of the hot topics really, and always will be. How quickly can you get some use out of your data, and how can data models help you do that? So, analyst Shawn is on board today. He's done the briefing room before and has been around for, goodness gracious, 19 years with hands-on IT experience. So he is not just a chalk talker, as some people refer to certain people in the business. No, he has been out there actually building solutions in his day, and so he knows some of the challenges that people come across. But he also does maintain that strategic view of the industry. So he focuses on understanding what's happening out there in the marketplace, what are the trends, what are the significant developments, and he consults and helps organizations understand what they can do to get better value from their information assets. And as I'm sure he will discuss, it is a moving target. It's a very fast-moving industry we have these days. Things are changing really at a pace that's kind of hard to understand. So we're going to talk a bit about that today as well. So Noetics, very happy to have Noetics in the briefing room. You can see that they're a company committed to helping customers simplify access to data. So they specialize in access. And you know, it's interesting, that term used to be a really hot term in the BI field about 6 or 7 years ago, and it seems to have faded somewhat. But you know, these terms are not necessarily indicative of what's happening. They can be fairly misleading, and I think it's a little bit disappointing that the term access has faded in the sort of lexicon or the marketing language about what's happening in the field of BI and analytics, because access really is a huge step. If you cannot access the data that you want in a timely fashion, you can't do your analytics, you can't get insights, you can't do the things that you need to do in order to improve your business. So I'm personally in favor of promoting this concept and really talking about how you facilitate the access to the data that you need. And of course, that's what we're going to discuss today, and that's what we're going to talk about with respect to data models, giving you that sort of on-ramp, if you will, for analytics. And we all know that on-ramps are useful things. So we're going to hear from Daryl Orts today. He's the Executive Vice President of Products and Services for Noetics. I've known Daryl for a number of years now. He's been on DM radio several times, always does a great job there. He's a practitioner. He's out there in the real world working on this stuff, so we're very pleased to have his experience with us today. So with that, I'm going to hand the keys over to you, Daryl. And if you just use the down arrow on your keyboard, move through the slides, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric. As Eric said, Noetics is a BI software product company focused on providing access to data for our customers. And we'll talk about what that means and what we mean by data models. We're focused in the Oracle E-Business Suite market, providing data models for that customers of that product, but we can integrate with and pull data from other enterprise applications as well. We are partnered with and integrate with all of the leading BI platforms. You can see a list of our partners down at the bottom, and I'll talk about some of the unique ways in which we provide that integration. And we have more than 1,500 customers globally using our solutions with Oracle E-Business Suite. So when we talk to customers about our solution, we start with why are they investing in a BI solution or an analytics solution at all? And it's always driven by some either business driver or IT driver. There's some challenge that the organization has. To address that challenge, they need information. They need data from somewhere, and once they get that data, they're going to improve their organization or improve their efficiency somehow, and that leads to managing their performance, and then the cycle starts again as you want to continue to improve the business. And most of the time, these drivers, the problem someone's trying to solve, are either business drivers, increasing or maximizing something, and we have customers who've tried to tackle all of these problems, maximizing revenue, increasing efficiency in just using their resources better or streamlining how quickly they can close their books, or increasing their visibility into how are we doing, right? How are we managing our spending across all the vendors across the world, or just give me a view of how my business is doing. What are my margins, my profitability by customer or by product? So those are the business drivers that lead to wanting a BI solution. Sometimes the drivers come from IT, change in some form. I'm implementing a new ERP system or a new version, a major upgrade of Oracle E-Business Suite, or I'm implementing a new BI platform. I'm moving to Oracle BI Enterprise Edition, or I'm excited about the new releases from Microsoft and I want to adopt that and incorporate Power View and SQL Server 2012 into my enterprise. Or there's some kind of organization change, a restructure, an acquisition, something that leads to wanting more of that insight. So all of those drivers then come to the same challenge. I need to get data from my system. And when we try to explain why this is difficult, we use an analogy. We think about a GPS device. So if I gave you a GPS device that had only latitude and longitude in it, it's not terribly useful. It doesn't help you do anything. It doesn't give you real information with that data. But as soon as we add maps and search and navigation and landmarks and guidance to the GPS system, now all of a sudden it solves problems for us. It addresses issues. It helps us get information and helps us address that challenge, which is getting to Starbucks on Fifth Avenue or getting to my hotel or whatever I was trying to do. So when we think about BI platforms, Cognos, SAP Business Objects, Oracle BI Enterprise Edition, MicroStrategy, when you get them, they're sort of like that GPS device with no maps in it. And by default, if you try to connect it to your enterprise system, you see things like attribute 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12, or reference key 1, 2, 3, or other more useful but still cryptic column names or table names, when really what you want is maps, right? Something that will help you search and have guided navigation to your data so that what you see in your BI platform is information like AP invoice payment details, and a calendar that has both your fiscal hierarchy and your calendar hierarchy, and information about check dates and purchase orders and that kind of stuff. And that's what Noetics does. We provide the maps. We provide the data models to connect the data that's in your enterprise application, Oracle E-Business Suite in our case, with the semantic model that the BI platform expects. And the data models we provide come in two forms. The first is a set of operational business views that in the end are exactly that. They are database views that hide the complexity of the data in the E-Business Suite database and expose it in terms that make sense to a business user. So rather than seeing 7 tables with these cryptic less than 30 character names, instead we see columns all in one view with employee name and grade and jurisdiction and payroll name and pay basis and all the stuff that a payroll manager would expect to see. So these views are unique in a number of ways, but the core value is that they provide access to the information in that customer's specific implementation of the E-Business Suite database. And they provide real-time access to that data, real-time operational reporting. But that's not always enough. We also need to have a data warehouse for historical trending or aggregations or integrating data from other data sources. So Noetics also provides a second set of data models, an analytical set of BI maps that include 2 forms of model. One is an operational data store designed for near real-time reporting that populates very quickly, extracting the data from the enterprise application. And then a library of data marts that are true star schemas with fact tables and conformed dimensions and snapshots and aggregations and all that kind of stuff to enable that more complex analytic reporting and to enable the integration of data from other data sources. So that's the core first part of what Noetics does. We provide these data models. As Eric said earlier, we provide access to data. But that's only one part of the problem because you still need to build a report in some BI platform. And you probably already have one. You may have standardized on IBM Cognos or SAP Business Objects or Microsoft's new BI platform with SharePoint and SQL Server and Office with Power Pivot. For each of these, Noetics provides automatic integration of our data models. So we have a set of products called the Noetics Generator products that take those data models and automatically load them into the semantic model for those BI platforms. So those semantic models have names like universes in Business Objects or the Enterprise Information Model or the RPD file for OBIEE. But for each of them, the Noetics Generator does the tedious work of setting up that model, creating all the joins, providing friendly names, doing aliasing, connecting links, and keeping that up to date as you maintain and upgrade and make changes to your system over the lifetime of your implementation. So that combination of the data models themselves, the operational real-time views, and the analytic data warehouse model, together with the generator that pushes them into the BI platform, provides the value for users so that they can build dashboards or take dashboards that we provide out of the box in those major BI platforms, as the one we see here with OBIEE, and build or use the reports that we provide to get drill down analysis and linked analysis and study the information and do all of that data discovery if we're integrating now with other BI platforms like QlikView and Tableau and Power View in Microsoft BI. So all of that enabled by the Noetics product family because we provide that access to the data and those data models. If we look at the sort of packaging of this, what we provide is organized in functional areas that match the functional areas that come with Oracle E-Business Suite, as we can see here. So when people buy E-Business Suite, they buy Oracle Financials or Supply Chain or Discrete Manufacturing or Advanced Supply Chain Planning or Projects or some combination of those. And within each of those big subject areas, there are smaller modules, general ledger, assets, benefits and payroll, inventory and bills of material, and all of those kinds of things. And for each of those that Oracle provides with eBusiness Suite, Noetics provides the data models for both the operational views and the analytics data warehouse in each of those functional areas. Architecturally, what this looks like is at the bottom, right, we have our data sources. eBusiness Suite is the most important one for us, but we can integrate with the others, as I'll talk about in a minute. On top of those data sources, we create the two data models that I just talked about. On the left side, we have the transactional business views. That's the Noetics Views product that provides real-time operational reporting. On the right side, we have the package data warehouse from Noetics Analytics. And it has interfaces that allow us to easily bring data in from Siebel or PeopleSoft or Salesforce.com or my custom inventory system or my homegrown HR database. All of those can be integrated into that Noetics data warehouse. At the next level up, we have the BI platform. So we have that line that says Noetics Technology. That's that generator family of products that lets me automatically load my data models into that BI platform. And then finally at the top, we have either some reports that we generate automatically into Web Intelligence or BI Answers or Cognos Report Studio, or a library of dashboards that we provide, or in all cases, right, the reports and dashboards that our customers build on top of the data models that are exposed in those BI platforms. So the end result of this is, again, coming back to what Eric talked about at the beginning of the presentation, focusing on agility and maximizing the ability for customers to quickly deploy a BI solution that gives access to their data in the technologies they've already invested in so that they can get value from those technologies, answer those business questions, and address those drivers that created the whole project in the first place, right? Addressing the change requirement or maximizing efficiency or maximizing my awareness of profitability. So in the end, that's what we do, right? Focus on rapid implementation. Because these are packaged solutions with some automatic generation technology and automatic capabilities, we can provide access to the data much more quickly than a build-it-yourself solution or a homegrown, I'll create my own data models, or a solution provided by some other vendor. There's a lower overall total cost of ownership because of the architecture which we use that I haven't really spent a lot of time on. We make it easy to support changes in the environment, whether that change is an upgrade to Oracle eBusiness Suite, which can be a complicated undertaking by itself, or an upgrade to the BI platform, or a new version of the product from Noetics. In each of those cases, our technology protects the investment that the customer has made, protects the reports and dashboards that have been built so that they'll still work in that new version of the environment after applying the new version of eBusiness Suite or Cognos or Noetics Views or whatever the change is. So that rapid, quick return on investment combined with the low total cost of ownership over time makes projects built with Noetics BI more successful, more consistently, and more reliably than other approaches. So with that, I think I'll hand it over to Shawn, and then we'll have some back and forth on how the solution works and some of the things that Shawn might want to explore a little further. So Shawn, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the overview. And for three guys who didn't talk much before this program, it's interesting that all three of us have zeroed in on that word agility. It's certainly at the core of what we're going to talk about today. And Daryl, I'm just going to end up echoing some, I think, of your thoughts. And, the title of today's program was, to each their own, and, how do you solve this complexity issue? And it's certainly a a topic that we could probably talk about for an entire 60 minutes without even talking about specific solutions. It's definitely a challenge that companies are battling with right now. Our data management ecosystems are expanding, and what Noetics does is testament to that. It's this ability to bridge the gap between application information and analytics, and the piece that I have here on my screen talks just a little bit about where some of those difficulties or challenges are coming from. And at their heart is as Eric said up front, there's this lack of flexibility or speed, and often from some solutions even a lack of overall automation. And frankly, we tell our clients to avoid solutions that don't help them or hinder them in these manners. And it's tough to stand back and look at your solutions or your overall data management ecosystem and figure out where you have those pain points. But identifying them early, finding where you have lack of speed, flexibility, or automation are certainly something that helps people sort of conquer this new complex world. And there's also this greater, I think, focus on operational information. Folks that are doing analysis of anything in the enterprise right now have gone away from simple analytics of wanting to figure out what they might have sold a year ago or a month ago, and they're trying to get into a more advanced view of their business, and that of course makes them have to look at things of the operational type. At EMA, we call this a hybrid data ecosystem. It's our way of defining exactly what everyone is talking about today. And if you look at the diagram over there, you'll see that we've identified an awful lot of sources in this ecosystem that a company needs to be aware of. And frankly, what we tell people is hey, be prepared and don't fight this. It's there, and finding the right platform for the right work at the right time is more important than trying to jam square pegs into round holes. And I think for a long time, companies spend an awful lot of time, effort, and money trying to adhere to some of the best practices that were built around traditional enterprise data warehouses. And they were afraid to go beyond an enterprise data warehouse to get better functionality or to solve issues or problems within their business. And nowadays, I think that there's been a big shift. My diagram shows one where, the resources at hand are big data, and starts to talk about where else information may come from or the systems that might be leveraged. But, at the core, what we need to do is understand that this is going on, accept the fact that it's okay for us to put the right data on the right platform for the right workload, and figure out what those platforms are. And, to your story, Daryl, today, I think that at the core, that's kind of what you're offering your customers is an understanding that this ecosystem is broadening and that it can be addressed through aligning the right solution at the right place in that ecosystem. Daryl, you talked about drivers for analytics, and I think you mentioned IT and business certainly have these initiatives that are driving forward. What we see at EMA that's driving the overall change in the ecosystem and putting greater demands on it are the 4 points that I have on the screen now. And at the very beginning, one of them is a maturing user group or community, and they're demanding, as I said, a more mature or sophisticated type of analytics. But also at the same time, they're demanding the ability to self-drive or self-service. And at the heart of what we're going to talk about today is how you enable that as well, giving companies a view of a data model that makes sense to the business individual so that they can use some of the tools that they're used to using to get the insights and access that they require. New technology certainly driving things forward, and I won't belabor that conversation. We all know about Moore's Law and how the technology is outpacing even some of what we want to get done today. Along with that, of course, is the economic side of it. We're able to do so much more with so much less at a lower price. I joked with someone a while back about big data, and I said, we've been doing big data for a long time in some ways. It just used to require a room full of Cray supercomputers and, and a government grant. But now companies are doing, even harder or more sophisticated work on a set of commodity servers at a much lower price. And, and then last but not least is this move towards getting more valuable data in play. And once again, Daryl, I'll say that that's at the heart of our conversation today is how do you bring data out of an application that's critical to your business so that you can get greater and more definitive insight into it so that you can take action in a quicker way, and how can you leverage that data type, and then, of course, merge it with other data throughout your enterprise to get the value you're after. For me, for those of you who are kind of looking to solve this problem of complexity, some of the things that you need to be looking for, as I said at the top of my talk today, is agility. Look for systems that allow you to replicate and reuse, systems that allow you to change and customize at a speed. Waiting around to make a change to a data warehouse or a data structure for 3 months just isn't acceptable anymore. We want to make these changes immediately or have them made automatically for us, to the point of automation. Also, of course, there are systems. Noetics has an offering here, and so do other folks in the BI space, where they have this ability to take a look at your data structure and create models on the fly or models based on the source. Also, for me, if you're going to use these types of automated models and templates and dashboards, you want to look for a company that can help you with deep domain expertise, either of the application that you're tapping into or the line of business that you're trying to add value to. It's all about kind of extending your investment. Many companies have made massive investments in these types of applications, but struggle to get value from them beyond what the app does when it comes to insight into the data, and that's certainly something that you want to avoid as best you can. You don't want to put up with subpar type insights or subpar type analytics that come from some of these applications. All too often the apps are built to do what the apps are supposed to do, and analytics tends to come in second. And then, of course, this enabling the power users and self-service users and allowing more people to have access to these analytics is something where you're going to see an extremely fast ROI, and it's certainly something that we tell our users or our customers to enable their systems for us, to be ready to be more agile, to be quicker, and to give them better access to data. So for me, to sum it up, it's be accepting of the drivers and the change and the fact that your landscape is evolving, but work with vendors who enable you to stay at pace with that, and then to leverage these new platforms. I think that that's key. And leveraging your initial investment. In the case of our conversation today, taking some applications that you might have that are critical to your business and getting even more out of them. And today's examples, as Eric mentioned, will be somewhat Oracle-based because Noetics has really kind of put a flag in the ground on that topic. But other examples are companies who are adding a greater level of analytics to Salesforce.com and other applications that are critical to their business. And then, last but not least, look for this opportunity to get to the faster ROI. We were joking in the call before we started today. The days of 2 years to build a data warehouse or an analytics environment and spending several $1 million on it and then having half of them, fall apart or not do what they're supposed to do are over. We need fast ROI. We need to get there quickly, and we need to partner with a company who will give us some of the tools, whether it's automatic integration to BI apps, or whether it's automated data models. All of those types of things are setting us at a much faster pace, and that's critical. So, I think, Daryl, you and I are in violent agreement today about the value that these types of solutions can offer. So, with that, unless you have any comments on what I've said, I'd be happy to get into our Q&A portion.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Well, why don't we start out with a kind of a straightforward one. I think you talked a little bit in your chat about, where the value proposition is for your company's solution, but, who in the audience from a job title standpoint are traditionally your customers? And then I'm kind of curious, do you find more traction with large enterprise or small to mid-sized business, and do you have a go-to-market strategy for one or the other or both?
Yeah, so that's a two-part question. So the first, who is the buyer? In all cases, we end up somewhere in the buying cycle talking to IT management and business user management. So it's almost 50-50 whether we're brought in by one side or the other into the deal. Almost always built around, hey, I need to do some reporting or analytics and I can't get to my data. Can you help? As far as the size of company focus, we have success from the highest levels, big companies like General Electric and Visa and MasterCard and people like that, all the way down to, I mean, usually it's not really small businesses. Our floor is probably around 50 million in revenue, just because our customers have to have Oracle E-Business Suite to be our customers, and that's just not practical for companies that are smaller than that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
As far as different go-to-market strategies, the core of it's about this is really the same, right? The problem that we're solving is the same problem, whether the company is enormous or medium-sized.
Yeah, that part of it certainly doesn't surprise me, and obviously the attachment that you have to the Oracle suites would make sense that you're going to end up, I guess, on the larger size. Oftentimes when I look at pre-designed data models or automated data models, they tend to somewhat come off as sometimes rigid or lacking detail. I had an interesting conversation at TDWI with some folks the other day, and we were talking about, data models that are theoretical, that they're nice to lay out, but they're not practical. And I know that that's not the case with Noetics, but I'm to the point of lack of flexibility, the ability to modify and change. Talk to me about how do I go about that as your customer, and how do I avoid getting stuck in a situation where I can't get out?
Okay, that's a great question, and there is a several-part answer. The first of which is I hinted at in the presentation, and this will probably be the most geeky technical part of my discussion today. So our products are defined in metadata. So we define descriptions of everything that we'll create, the views and the data models and the database star schemas. And we have some unique patented technology that actually reads the configuration of this system of E-Business Suite, how the flex fields and pick lists and charts of accounts and sets of books and ledgers have been set up, and we dynamically build models that exactly match this configuration of E-Business Suite. So that's one of the distinctions versus the TDWI people you talk to, who I think appropriately have some skepticism over just static packaged data models. So
right.
Ours aren't static, they are generated dynamically. But
well, and you just touched on that point that I made in my talk about that domain expertise as well, right? Because you're able to cater this exactly to the data structure of this application suite.
Exactly correct.
Yeah.
But having said all that, the truth is that in every single implementation, there is customization that's required. So every customer knows that they will extend or modify our models, and all of our products come with SDKs that allow you to extend them. And then just within the last couple of months, we released a new product called the Noetics Views Workbench that provides a wizard-driven approach for adding to or modifying those the real-time reporting operational views models, including a really cool feature that lets you take any database view that you've created and add it to our system, and it will parse it and decompose it and turn it into our metadata structure, and then treat it as though it was one of our objects for generated into the BI platform and generating into the database schema with the views and all of that kind of stuff. So combination of configuration-specific generation, expertise of our engineers in subject matter expertise, and then extensibility and customizability through our SDK and this new workbench. All of that makes the models be appropriate for this business and not static and out of date.
So this evolution from the SDK access point to the workbench tool that you've created, I would imagine that that's impacting the end user's easeability of use and probably allowing them to avoid, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I hear SDK, I start thinking about professional services hours and experts having to kind of come in and help the data modelers get their job done. Is the SDK simple enough for your average data modeler, or does the workbench make it more approachable?
The workbench definitely makes it much easier. So just the administrator, whether it's the person who owns the BI platform, right, the Cognos administrator, or or even a power user in the business organization, they can make the changes necessary. So you don't need to go hire the TDWI graduate who's a data warehouse certified expert who has been in the business for 20 years. You can do it with a much more normal set of skills.
And that speaks, I guess, to our theme of agility a bit, this opportunity to make change to the infrastructure of your data management environment quick and easily and keep pace with the way you're customizing or changing things on your end.
Yeah, exactly true. Because the people who know what they need are the business users themselves. And the workbench especially helps bridge the gap between that business user and the person who actually can make the changes to the model, so you don't have this get in the IT backlog, wait for 3 months, and then try to explain what a purchase order approval date is to some DBA.
Yeah. Well, we've all been in those conversations. They're painful. My next question isn't too terribly far off from the one here about data models, but I read on your website that you have the ability to automatically create queries and reports specific to an organization. So I guess I'm back on that sort of domain expertise side of the question. And then also, I'd like to get a sense of how robust your preconceived or predefined reporting is. Is it dozens of reports, hundreds of reports, and so on?
Okay. Yeah. So again, that's I'll try to remember all.
I'm not being very fair to you today.
Yeah. So one of them. So our engineering team, the group that builds our products, has a whole bunch of experts who understand Oracle E-Business Suite functionality, financials, supply chain, projects, discrete manufacturing, process manufacturing. So we have rich, deep expertise in people who are pretty hard to find, who are both functional in knowledge of that manufacturing or projects or whatever area, and technical in their ability to understand the database technologies underneath. So those are the people who design both our data models and the out-of-the-box reports that we're about to talk about. So those reports, just like the view definitions and the data warehouse model definitions, are defined in metadata in this patented process that generates things that are configuration specific. After the views get generated, then the reports get generated on top of those views, again customized to match the chart of accounts and the flex fields for this implementation of the system. There are about 1,000 out-of-the-box reports across the whole library. So if someone bought the functionality for every, financials and supply chain and projects and HR, they'd get slightly over 1,000 reports generated.
Okay. Well, that's great. I've bumped into some systems that claim to have fast start report packages and so on, and they're blowing the horn about having 10 of them or something along that line, and they're not especially domain specific. They tend to just be frameworks of standard types of reports, and they end up taking an awful lot of post work to get them viable for the company. And to me, it's not a very compelling value proposition, but it sounds like you guys are on the right track. Going to the Noetics views idea, I think it's great that there's this ability to implement these predefined data views. Once again, I can't help but think about the data management aspects of this, and I'm curious as to whether or not this creates a bunch of views that are out there that need to then be managed by someone. And I have to admit, in a strange way, I started thinking about OLAP cubes just a little bit, and I was thinking, oh goodness, do all of these views become cumbersome to the situation, or are they fairly static, or how are they managed? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the views, as I said before, they get generated dynamically. So there's an automated process so in the initial implementation, it's literally just a handful of hours from when someone sits down to start the implementation until the views are generated and a search data dictionary is generated and the model in Cognos is generated. So all of that is truly, literally automated. And then when you make changes, so let's say you come and you add a new attribute to a descriptive flex field, which is like a user-defined field in in eBusiness Suite terminology. Then you rerun that generation process, and the Noetics tools maintain the views and the Cognos Framework Manager packages and the generated reports. They're all dynamically, automatically updated and refreshed with a bunch of logic to make sure that update protects changes and protects customizations and all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
So
because I have a question further on about how you keep consistency between the application, the data from the app, the reports, and so on. And so this is all an interconnected tree.
Yes. So again, one of the unique things about our approach is the metadata model that describes the data model, right? So our view definitions and our data warehouse descriptions, right? That's stored in one place and then used programmatically to build the views, to build the search data dictionary, to build the data warehouse schema, and to build the Cognos packages or the business objects universe, and to build those generated reports. So when you make a change, then that change gets pushed out, generated to all of those target locations, so you're not maintaining and having the problem that you described, where you have things get out of sync because your view doesn't match your BI model.
Okay, that's good to hear. Do you get asked that question often?
We do, and to be honest, there's some skepticism and disbelief of, can that really work? Can you really regenerate my RPD file if I'm in OBIEE and not break it? And the answer is really legitimately yes, we do.
Well, that segues into the next question that I've got, and actually in a rather good way. I think one of the advantages of what you do is that you're not trying to be everything to everybody. You're not trying to do this with every application suite that's out there in the world from every vendor. You have, Noetics has, since I became aware of the company, which was many years ago, has always had this very firm position in the Oracle application space. But I couldn't help but ask, is there a time or a place where you will look to other opportunities beyond the Oracle ecosystem, or is the benefit what I just kind of said, this ability to be expert at one handful of really exciting things?
Yeah, it's definitely a dilemma, because as you say, on the one hand, when you're an expert on something, you really can do it very, very well. On the other hand, we know that the world's data doesn't all exist in eBusiness Suite. So we look periodically. So we've assessed SAP and Siebel and PeopleSoft and a number of others. We actually have a packaged analytics solution for Salesforce.com data, because we have quite a few customers blending Salesforce with their EBS data. And architecturally, it's easier to expand the models on the packaged data warehouse side. So that's probably where we will expand whenever we do. There's nothing imminent. There's not a about to be announced Noetics views for some other application. But we look periodically, and it is on our roadmap.
Okay. Well, and so the Salesforce example is a bit of an answer to the next question I had, which is, how do you access information from other systems? And you touched on that when you were talking before, this ability to take a view and ingest it into your data structure, and or create a view from someone else's data model and bring it into your system to kind of make it part of the system. As I said up front, I think one of the drivers in the analytics space right now is this demand for more sophisticated analytics. So everybody's not, most people aren't satisfied with just asking their Oracle apps a question. They want to take that data and merge it with something else, like social information or sentiment analysis, or a supply chain application that might not be Oracle's. Talk a little bit about how you handle that and how you make it simple, and where that fits into how your customers are using the solution.
Okay, sure. Usually that kind of integration of data from multiple data sources happens in the data warehouse. So with our packaged data warehouse, we expect that and anticipate it. So with the normal implementation of Noetics Analytics, right, we use Informatica ETL. So our product comes with packaged ETL to pull the data from eBusiness Suite and load it into our warehouse. And with that, we have an interface, a collection of tables that we call integration interface tables that are effectively flattened versions of the data models that are the targets, and those are designed to be the integration point, so I could pull data from Salesforce or my custom inventory system, or from NetSuite, or from my sentiment analysis, to load into those tables to populate columns about my customers and add some custom fields for what they're thinking and what my ranking is and what their opinions are and that kind of stuff. So that's the approach we take for integrating data from other sources. It comes into our data warehouse through some custom ETL that will have to be written to pull it into these integration interface tables, and then packaged ETL code that we provide to get it from there the rest of the way into our warehouse. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, it does, and thank you. I'm glad I asked the question that way, because I wasn't aware of the on how you were leveraging Informatica as a partner in that process. So that's good to know. You know, I have a question up there right now about handling KPIs and drill downs and trend analysis and scorecards. You know, once again, I guess I'm kind of pounding the drum of the more sophisticated view or better insight to your data. Now, I know that you partner with leading BI platforms, many of whom have the ability to do this type of work. So first part of the question is the way you organize the data, the way Noetics Generator attaches or makes the data available to these platforms, are they able to do those types of things? And then the second half of it is of course, you have an analytics platform as well for dashboards and reports. I guess I don't want to assume, do you have the capacity to do that type of work as well?
Yeah, so the first part of the question is a little of both. So we have some KPIs defined in drill down definitions and links and drill paths and hierarchies defined, and snapshots defined to provide trending historical information. All of that comes packaged with the Noetics Analytics product, along with a metadata management tool that lets me or lets the customer add additional KPIs or calculations or hierarchies within our model. And then finally, there's always the ability within the BI platform, right? So if I'm using OBIEE, I can go into OBIEE admin and define more KPIs, or I can go into my analysis services cube and add some more KPIs or some more calculations or metrics. So we think we provide the best of both worlds in that we have a library of things out of the box, a set of tools that let our library be extended and modified, and then remain open to allow the tools that the BI platform vendor provided take advantage of those tools. As far as our BI platform, so we have a product called the Noetics platform that's really a query and reporting platform. We don't claim that it's a full-fledged BI platform with support for mobile BI and alerts and advanced drill down and analytic capabilities. So it's used mostly by customers of our Noetics Views product for ad hoc query and reporting. And we're not going to try to compete with Cognos and SAP and Business Objects and Microsoft BI to make that a world-class BI platform. We're not going to be in Gartner's BI platform Magic Quadrant in the top right, trying to do better than MicroStrategy, for example. It's just not. I mean, our focus is on providing the models, and then our platform is a delivery mechanism for them, for customers who don't have one of those other BI platforms.
Okay. That makes good sense. I'm going to skip the last two questions I have here because we've kind of touched around this flexibility issue and how you maintain I guess the state between Oracle's apps for upgrades and things of that nature. And like you said before, probably some skepticism from some of your end users. I bet we could spend a bunch of different an hour or two trying to work our way through that. I had a couple other kind of pragmatic questions I wanted to ask you, and one of them kind of, you know, when you talk about your operational data store, the data mart, the data warehouse that you're able to produce and need to produce to hold the information to support the analytic features that you're working on, how do you approach clients that already have a significant data warehouse in place or an operational data store in place. Are you looking to replace what they have, or do you exist alongside of it? What do you tell a customer when they ask about that aspect of your solution?
It's every possible answer to that question. So usually, if our customers are looking at our product, it's because they want to build a data warehouse with financials or their Oracle E-Business Suite data as the core of that warehouse. So in most cases, if they have one, we're replacing it, but not all cases. A lot of times, we are gradually replacing it, so they use ours alongside what they have today. So our generator story fits well in that because we can coexist in the same BI platform environment as what they currently have. And then a lot of times they'll build ETL to extract from the existing warehouse and load into our warehouse. We have one big customer that has a sort of hybrid implementation. They have, I think, 15 implementations of Noetics Analytics, all pulling from their own e-business suite system and loading into a data warehouse. And then they have a consolidated data warehouse that pulls the vendor spend information from all 15 of those different sources and builds it into one true enterprise data warehouse, so they can look at vendor spend worldwide. In fact, it was in my early slides. This is General Electric. They pull all of that information from all of those different systems into one master data warehouse. Wow.
Okay. And it sounds that at first blush it sounds complex, but it also sounds very logical in the approach. So it makes sense. Eric, I'm going to pull you in at this point. You'd asked me to kind of keep an eye on the clock, and I've got more questions for Daryl, but it's always nice to hear from your audience. And I see a lot of technical questions coming in that are probably best answered by Daryl. If you want to go to a few of those, we can. Otherwise, I can continue along my path.
Yeah, well, sure. Why don't you keep a couple, two of your favorites queued up, and we'll hit some of these audience questions, and maybe we'll have time for you to get a couple more in. So we have as you mentioned, some very detailed questions here. So let me just throw these out to you, Daryl, and see what you think. One of the attendees asks, are mapping, and you kind of talked about this already, but if you could just kind of expound, I think it speaks to kind of the heart of the versatility of what you guys have built out there. The question reads, are mappings between models from different vendors and domains provided in advance and statically for a specific set of sources and destinations, or does Noetics provide the metadata tools that require users to do cross-domain mapping?
Right. So as we said, almost all of our models the source is Oracle E-Business Suite, with some from Salesforce, and then the integration interface tables that let us pull from other sources. As far as the targets, right, our data warehouse can go into either a SQL Server or Oracle database. So again, dynamically generated database schemas for the target warehouse. So we do provide metadata management tools for modifying and extending our models, but it's not. I don't want to provide the impression that you could take our modeling tool and build the equivalent of Noetics views for J.D. Edwards. We're not a metadata management tool or a data modeling tool like Irwin or something like that.
Yeah, and that was one of the other questions is, how similar is this to a data modeling tool like ER, for example, and you're not really an ETL tool per se either, right? You're literally allowing people to dynamically generate some of these models to pull data out of a number of specific source systems in order to really speed the process of loading data into some analytical systems, right?
Yeah, exactly correct. So our value, the reason people buy our software is the knowledge built into the models we provide for financials and supply chain and projects and manufacturing for e-business suite. So that's the core of our expertise. Although we have data modeling components that let those solutions be extended and modified, we're not selling data modeling tools. We're not selling an ETL tool. The ETL that we use in populating our warehouse is built in Informatica. So Informatica, if a customer doesn't already own it, comes bundled with Noetics Analytics. And all of the ETL code, the ETL mappings, are written in Informatica PowerCenter.
Okay, good. And here's an interesting question. It's kind of a broad question, but I think it'll allow us to both kind of speak to something here. And maybe, Shawn, you might want to comment on this as well. But the question is simply, can we define exactly what we mean by data model in this discussion? So, Daryl, can you take a crack at that?
Yeah, for us, so it isn't an entity relationship model. So for us, it's really a semantic model for defining access to information in an enterprise system. And by semantic model, I mean sort of the bridge to the BI platform. So our models include information like field names and column names and join relationships and data types and aggregation levels and summaries and that kind of stuff. They're not, so it isn't a let me go use this to design a relational database schema. It really is focused on functional understanding and providing the abstraction layer from what's stored in the source system in a bunch of relational tables, transforming that into something that makes sense to a business user. So I know, I mean, I don't have a, here's our canonical, in 30 words or less, what is a data model definition. So I apologize for that.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. And I'm guessing that one of the issues you encounter when you go out and talk to people is kind of getting over this hurdle of a perception, at least in some minds, that they should already be able to get this out of Oracle, right? I would tend to think that that some people think, well, why wouldn't I just get this from Oracle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We run into a hybrid of the question of, well, don't I already have that? And, oh, well, no, I have Cognos, so I don't need another BI thing. And so we do spend a fair amount of education time on this slide and the couple before it. And that's why we have this whole analogy of the GPS device with no maps in it, to try to explain to people why they need something that provides the map to their data. And we do spend a fair amount of education time in the sales cycle, because Oracle will happily tell someone, hey, if you have money to spend, give it to us.
I'm sure they will. That's what almost every software company does, right? But I'm always impressed by the software companies who will answer very quickly the question, what do you not do, right? I mean, anytime I hear a vendor say, okay, here's what we do and here's what we don't do, I think that's what I call a green flag, right, as opposed to a red flag. It's a very good sign if a vendor tells you very clearly what they don't do. Here's a question from one of the attendees. It's an interesting one. It goes like this. This reminds me of the early to mid-2000s and what Gartner branded EII, or Enterprise Information Integration, metadata-driven, that is. Is that how you would position Noetics, albeit across the app and BI players, that there's no vendor lock-in with regard to underlying tech? It's kind of an interesting question. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the EII stuff from 5 or 10 years ago was focused on, there was a lot of talk about a virtual data warehouse or federated query or federated distributed query that was providing a metadata layer that hid the complexity of where all the data lived. And in fact, that's built into our Noetics platform BI server. But that's not really the core of what we're doing, because those technologies in some ways were attempting to obviate the need for the data warehouse, when in fact, the DM radio discussion from last week, I think you still do need a data warehouse. You want to put the data in one place, cleanse it, make it consistent with itself, do the summaries and aggregations and snapshots and all that kind of stuff. So we're not really trying to solve that problem. We're really focused on just but our models would go into an EII platform just as well as they could go into a BI platform. If that
right. Well, you're an enabling technology for data warehousing and enterprise information integration, it seems to me, right?
Yes, absolutely correct.
Yep. Yeah, you're basically providing a bridge, and you're allowing people to expedite the process of and let's face it, that process can be very painful, very expensive, and very time-consuming to extract the data, to get access to it, and then to, help load it into some other system. So that's, you're, I think, definitely facilitating the speed. And is that, I'm guessing, what you hear from a lot of your customers, that they're very happy once they figure out how to kind of stitch this stuff in, because it lets them move quickly. It lets them get to that analysis, right?
Yeah, exactly correct, right? It's all about making it faster to get some results from this BI system that we're trying to implement, right? So they just spend a big pile of money on Cognos or MicroStrategy or Microsoft BI, and they're like, okay, now I have this empty thing, do something for me. And they still need to find the data, and that's where we come in.
So here's a really detailed question. It's a very good one. One of the attendees asks, the ability to dynamically extract metadata from a client-source database and map it to Noetics metadata must depend on having the source metadata and an instance of a previously encountered vendor product. In other words, it won't work for a proprietary source model. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. So again, our source has to be e-business suite data, or with some for some things for the Salesforce.com data. So you can't take our dynamic patented generation approach and just point it to your J.D. Edwards data or something like that. It has to. Ours is that's just another problem to solve.
Yeah, and in your roadmap, are you looking to expand that down the road, or you feel there's just enough business in that particular space to keep you busy for a while?
We would like to expand it. Shawn asked this earlier. We know that there's a lot of opportunity if we were to expand it to other data sources. It's because what we do requires domain expertise and technical expertise in the application. It's a fair amount of work to get that done. There's also a fair amount of just infrastructure in sales and support and those kinds of things that would be a big investment for us that we haven't made yet.
Yep. Okay, good. Here's another question, and then Shawn, I'll let you ask a couple, and then we'll wrap up. One of the attendees asks, is Noetics somehow similar to Model Designer in reporting services from Microsoft, allowing power users to design views and reports, except the underlying models are automatically generated?
So yes, our generator for Microsoft BI builds that report model that you would build in Model Designer. So we sort of bypass the need for Model Designer. We take all of the view definitions or all of the star schema definitions in our warehouse, and we build that report model, and we do all of the aliasing and the joining and the naming and the putting in descriptions and getting friendly names and setting data types and aggregation levels and that kind of stuff. So that's exactly what it does. And then for the other BI platforms, so in Business Objects, that thing's called Universe Designer. In Cognos, it's called Framework Manager. And for each of those, we automate what that administrative tool does to just make it so you don't have to do a lot of that tedious stuff.
Okay, good. And Shawn, why don't you go ahead and give a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I've got two more. One of them is, I think, more on the administrative side. Daryl, I'm kind of curious how you manage the users as far as gaining access to the information, security layer, that type of thing. My first instinct was you must either be using that type of information either coming off the app or off the BI platform. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, it's actually a combination of both. So with the Noetics views objects, we incorporate and integrate the e-business suite security. So whatever security has been set up with GL FlexField security rules or security profiles, right? We reuse that in the Noetics data model or data objects. And then we actually have plugins for all the major BI platforms, Cognos Business Objects, OBI, that let you map your BI platform user to that e-business suite user so that you can reuse all of that security. So we provide the bridge connecting the BI user to protecting the data. All of the importance of all of that is our customers design their security model once in eBusiness Suite, and you use that exact same security model with Noetics so that when you run a report, you see the data you're allowed to see. You see only the employees who report to you, and you don't see their social security numbers because you're not allowed to, but HR sees everything.
Okay, excellent. And then, last one for me before we let you go, Daryl, is I'd be remiss as an analyst if I didn't use the word big data at least a couple of times today. You made a great point about how Salesforce has sort of found its way into your very niche model. I'm curious, do you see a place for big data as part of your roadmap down the road to continue to serve your customers? Or are they asking you about an ability to bring that type of data into your environment for analytics?
Well, just like you'd be remiss if you didn't ask about it, every customer thinks they'd be remiss if they didn't ask about it. It's like everybody wants to know about big data. So it definitely fits into our roadmap in a number of ways. One is the one that I hinted at earlier, to be able to pull selective data from that big data system, whether it's the sentiment analysis or tracking my Twitter feeds or just lots of whatever that data is, pulling that in selectively, supplementing the data warehouse. The second is taking what's in the data warehouse and pushing it out to a Hadoop structured database so that it can be accessed or updated more quickly or something like that. In both of those cases, the primary interface to the big data system is either Informatica with its connectors to it, or the BI platform. If you just want to run a report, which is what's the Twitterverse saying about me and about this customer, right? A lot of that can be done by modeling in OBIEE or in Cognos. So although it's important to us and we're defining our roadmap for us, in most important ways, we're piggybacking on the capabilities provided by either Informatica or by the BI platform vendors.
Okay, good. And let me throw one more at you, Daryl. This is kind of a little bit off topic, but it might allow some interesting commentary since we just dug into big data here a little bit. One of the attendees asks, I'm here looking for tools to apply big data to a very complex problem, agricultural production. In a very controlled environment like an industry or service provider, using big data doesn't appear to be rocket science. And he asks, so agricultural production involves a very fast-changing environment, soil, crop, human, and market data. What kind of data model do I need for that? Any thoughts you can throw at that?
I think first of all, I know nothing about that space, so take this with a grain of salt. And one of the things about big data is people focus on the big part, but in the end, it's data, right? And you need a data model. You need to understand what are the attributes that you care about and the fields that you care about, and whether you're loading into QlikView and Tableau or building a more traditional data model for OBIEE or Cognos or something like that, you still need to identify the areas that you care about, and the visualization tools will allow you to just sort of discover stuff and explore relationships, but you still need to identify the most important measures that you care about, the dimensions on which you'll analyze those measures. And it doesn't mean you have to create a dimensional model, but you're always going to have things that you're totaling and adding up and summing, and then attributes about those things. So I think my recommendation is you focus on exactly what the attendee is asking about, right? What are my soil characteristics and crop characteristics and demand characteristics and pricing characteristics, and then how do those affect my yield or my revenue or my volume or my efficiency? So those yield, revenue, volume, efficiency, those are the measures that we care about. And then soil characteristics, whether it's temperature or rainfall or whatever, right? Those are the things that are then the dimensions that we look at things by.
Yep, no, that's a very, very good answer. That's exactly right. What are the relationships between these entities? How do they impact each other? How do they impact the bottom line? That's all good stuff. Well, folks, Another wonderful 70 minutes has blown past us here. A very, very big thank you to Daryl Orts of Noetics and Shawn Rogers of Enterprise Management Associates for their time today. Thank you, all of you out there, for your great questions and for the tweets. We'll catch up to you next week when we talk all about bridging unstructured and structured. That's the ultimate chasm these days. How do you bridge these two worlds? We'll find out from Astrodata, which of course is now part of Teradata. And with that, we will bid you farewell, but thank you again for your time and attention, folks. We'll catch up to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.